IVM.
The business of live entertainment in India is booming, and not just for stand-up comedy. Great experiences are on offer for those who seek them in the spaces of spoken word and poetry, films and filmmaking, performance arts, creativity, and more. Today, we dissect what's bringing Indians out of their homes and into parks, gardens, and amphitheatres apart from the CAA-NRC protests. Joining me in the studio are Ritam Bhatnagar, the founder of India Film Project, Asia's largest festival for creators, and the institution that is Roshan Abbas. Tune in as we talk about building up cultural spaces, bringing together creative communities, and curating properties that make for memorable experiences. Spoken Fest, India Film Project, and more right after these messages. And hey, thank you for listening.
घड़ी की टिक टिक के बीच अब वक्त हो चुका है टपरी पे मिलने का, चाय या कॉफी के साथ टपरी टेल्स सुनने का। सोचिए, अगर आपकी मम्मी, अक्का, दादी, नानी, जीजी, आजी भी आपके साथ इस चाय की टपरी पे एक चुस्की लेने आ जाए तो कैसी बातें होंगी? उनकी कहानियाँ कितनी नई या पुरानी होगी? एक्चुअली ना, टपरी पे पहली बार ये उनकी जुबानी होगी। तो मिलिए इन नए किरदारों से हर गुरुवार टपरी टेल्स पर। चाय की प्याली, एक नई कहानी with Madhuri Advani on IVM Podcast app, website or wherever you get your podcast from.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am about to bring to you a very exciting episode of Storytellers and Story Sellers. On today's episode, we talk about going out culture in India. India has never been a very going out friendly country. By that, I mean, sure, we'd go to a cinema hall, sure, we'd go out to the lake with our families sometimes, but going to festivals is something that is relatively new to India. When you really think about it, the biggest festivals, when it comes from a music sense, in India have only been around for 10 years. That said, what we are seeing emerge in the third decade of the 21st century today is speciality events, speciality gatherings, and experiences that are supremely sought after. And today, in the studio to talk about two of these speciality events are Roshan Abbas, the Roshan Abbas, yes, in the flesh, and Ritam Bhatnagar. Roshan needs no introduction, and I'm going to let him introduce himself in a little bit. Ritam runs India Film Project now in its 10th year. Hi Ritam.
Hello.
Great to have you here.
Same here.
Yeah. Can we take a second and fanboy about the fact that we're both on the podcast with Roshan Abbas?
Oh, of course. I was going through my emails today, and there are so many emails that I had written to him in my early days. And he had agreed to be a part of India Film Project way back in 2015, though it could not happen. But I was just going through all those memories that
round 2, 2020.
Yeah, I can't tell you. I was so happy that when you told me that Ritam's going to be here. ऐसे कभी कभार होता है ना that you keep saying मिलेंगे, and बॉम्बे में तो बहुत आता है ना कि bro it's happening or whatever, right? So, but I was really keen because I think when the very first year when we heard of the project and we just started Commune and I heard of IFP and I just heard that they wanted to talk about stories and promote people who could come and narrate their stories. So I told Tessa that this we have to do.
Right.
So we said yes, and I often say yes to many things, and then I suddenly look at my diary and I'm like, oh hell, and today somebody. A friend who's a comedian, I messaged me saying कि अच्छा हमारी जो 3 महीने पहले की मुलाकात थी अब कर ले. And I was like, यार, ये मेरी गलती है. I said, ऐसे मजाक में कभी बार सोचा था कि एक कंपनी चलाएगी, फिर 2 हो गई, फिर 3 हो गई, फिर 4 हो गई. And my wife said that I think I'm born to be busy because I like being busy. Yeah. So I'm extra busy all the time. So I told him, I said, yaar, ye ho gaya hai, whatever. So it's unfortunately that. So I'm so happy that I'm here. And, Nikhil Taneja, who was also helping them this year. Right. So Nikhil used to keep sharing these posts and I follow him. So I was like, अरे यार इतना FOMO हो रहा है कि अरे ऐसा जावेद साहब ने बोल दिया, अरे ये हो गया, अरे stage पर, so it was honestly it was so compliments on a fabulous event which I wasn't at, but I heard so much on social. And I'm just so glad that thanks to you we're here.
I'm so glad.
And flashback to 20 years back, Family Fortunes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean,
one show that I used to love it. So that was one show जहाँ पे I used to just take a break from my study just to watch it.
Likewise. I mean, I didn't study much, but I mean, every time, and again, Roshan sir and I've met a couple of times as well, but every time I think about Roshan Abbas, the first thing in my mind is always Family Fortunes. I'm a massive reality TV fan. I mean, whatever little bit development work that I have done for shows and stuff is also squarely in the reality space. But I don't think we've seen anything like Family Fortunes.
Absolutely.
And it's so wholesome, right? So wholesome. I mean, Steve Harvey has nothing on you, sir.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. No, in fact, when I travel abroad and I still see the show, I get so jealous saying that, in India, unfortunately, in that cycle, I was talking to someone this morning saying that I think I started it in 97. Right? And 96, 97. And, at that point in time, seasonality show ki nahi hoti thi. So every year, the producers would sit with you and say, what new can we do? And I was like, but why do you need to do something new? It's a perfect show. It works wonderfully.
If it isn't broken,
exactly. But can we add this? Can we do this? Can we do Diwali special? Can we do this, that, and whatever? And I had the craziest of people, in fact, who so Samir Nair days of television.
Oh, wow.
Tarun Katyal, the famous Tarun Katyal. Tarun used to be on our show. It was his first job, I think, crazy. So the kind of talent that passed through, the directors we had, everything, it was a really special time. And now when I see it, I'm like, yaar, you should have just let it continue. अरे side में डाल देते, after में डाल देते, कहीं डाल देते.
यार 100 लोगों से
पूछ लेते ना कम से कम कि यार show चाहिए कि नहीं. So even now, I depending on which country I travel to, I will always get two responses. Somebody on the road will say, hey, public demand. Because I used to do that Vox Pop show when Ruby Bhatia used to do it on Channel V and I used to do it on Z.
Right.
And they were both Vox Pop shows, but very different. So Ruby was Ruby and I was Bakhubi. And then there was Family Fortunes.
Right.
So in some countries, they'll look at me and say, "Humne 100 लोगों से पूछा." I'm like, yes, वही है.
And Family Fortunes is also not sort of the first thing that made you famous, right? There was your body of work with radio. There's a bunch of other stuff that had happened. What I'd really love to do to kick off this conversation about what we're doing today is just retrace the steps for Roshan Abbas from Family Fortunes or around then. And I'm sure you get asked this a lot, given the institution that you're really becoming.
Yeah, really. So actually, I was a Lucknow boy. I used to do theatre in Lucknow.
Right.
And my parents were both teachers. I studied, but I also spent. I was this guy who was going to be a doc at one stage. Loved biology, still love biology. Want to prescribe medicines to everyone.
Right.
ऐसा कर लो अच्छा
कोरोना वायरस पे क्या कर
भाई कुछ करो ना sorry very bad but so ऐसे शुरू हुआ था so I came from Lucknow to Delhi, and Delhi is when I did my bachelor's in English, and that was the time when I started doing professional theatre.
Right.
So my actual first break, if you ask me in terms of a career, was professional theatre with Stage Door. Traveled all over the country and then landed up at mass communication. जामिया में खुला हुआ था, कुछ 5 ही बैच हुए थे. मेरा senior SRK थे, like those ones. And Kabir was one batch senior to me. Right. I mean, so it was a wonderful time to be in a institute and no knowledge of फिर क्या होगा. So I came out of Masscom and realized there was nothing to do. There was Z TV had just started, Star had just started. I did a show where I did 4 episodes of a career talk show on television called हम होंगे कामयाब.
Right.
On Z. उसमें मैं ही कामयाब नहीं हुआ because I was like, boss, ये बहुत boring है. Like it was like, मुझे आज तक imagine how it's seared on my imagination that I remember the first line I said on that show. स्थापत्य कला में स्नातक प्राप्त करने की अगर आवश्यकता है, like ये कौन सुनेगा यार? So I was like, boss, I don't want to do this.
पहले ये शो देखने के लिए हिंदी
मतलब हिंदी सीखो ना, और ऐसी हिंदी सीखो. But I mean, ऐसी script थी. So I did 4 episodes and I said, this is not me. Spent 6 months not without a job figuring out what to do, and one day put on the button of something on radio called FM. And that was suddenly like this thing of saying, oh my God, this is something I can do. I mean, talking is something I can do, and engaging with people and getting through to them is something I genuinely believe. I love to do it. I love chatting with people. I love meeting up with people. I'm just a curiosity collector in senses. So I started doing radio, and that really was my first career break. And All India Radio gave me a show, which was a really nice show, which I started doing on Sunday mornings, which was called 10 se 11, which was a countdown show.
Right.
And from that, Times FM hired me, and I started doing multiple shows for them because Times थोड़ा, अपना पैसा पूरा extract कर लेता था.
Correct.
So I would do a morning show and afternoon show. हाँ. तो उस समय तो morning, afternoon, evening में 3 show करता था.
Right.
But people didn't realize that because I was the first of the 5 or 6 people, Brian Tellis, all these people had just started from Bombay. I was in Delhi. That we became almost like people's addiction. We were their morning cup of coffee, their afternoon chai, their dinner. तो एक habit बन गई थी. And that switched immediately to television. So, right. Theatre, radio, television with shows like Shopping Hangama, Born Lucky, Family Fortunes, Tufan Mail, Public Demand, then you just name it, फिर बहुत सारा होता गया. And 99 I moved to Bombay. In between I set up an event agency.
So you were doing Family Fortunes out of Delhi?
Out of Delhi first, then Bombay.
Okay.
So we did Delhi because it was the show. The company Fremantle was based in Delhi.
Right, Fremantle still in
So
Delhi.
yeah, so I did time there with them, and then Bombay, and we even went to Bangalore and did one series inside a stadium which had no air conditioning, and I had to wear suits. So it's if I don't know when I'll ever be able to see those episodes. I had everyone from Sandeep Patil to Syed Kirmani and everybody in those episodes.
Right.
Everybody sweating.
Wow.
So the show was only about sweat. Sweat, blood and tears. Ye ho raha tha. So that was it. And then, of course, multiple things happened. I set up Encompass. Encompass became one of India's biggest event agencies. Sold that to WPP. Had some money made. Didn't know what to do. Said ab kuch karna hai. Made a film. So I most people miss that part of my career.
This is 2009.
2009-10 is when I actually 9-10 I navigated working with SRK.
Right.
Because I was like I had to go to the house and SRK would be like, chatting with him 4 घंटे सब बात होती film के अलावा.
Right.
So and it was just such a joy because I would sit and listen to him and learn from him. And 10 is when we shot the film. 11 is when it released just the week after IPL along with 7 other films. 7 people saw it. No, actually, enough people saw it. We did decently. We made about 4 crores, if I remember, at the box office, and it was a really tightly produced film. And then it went straight to television. So even now, on certain days, when you'll open any channel, you will see a film called Always Kabhi Kabhi, which Ali, if you're listening, Ali Fazal, I made him dance. And he was like, "Ye bhi karna padega." I said, "Yes." So I had Ali, Giseli, and Zomurani and Satyadeep. All these guys were together on it. And that's the film bit. And straight after that, Commune happened. So I'm sorry this will become too long, but all this happened. So I did all of this, and in between, Glitch also happened. So, so I keep doing these mad, crazy things, and I still continue to do them. And then from Commune, Spoken happened, which is why I'm here.
So, while there are so many aspects of that story to really pick at and learn from, because we want to talk about Spoken and Commune, where did that come from? So diverse, right? Geometry Encompass is an experiential event agency, right? There's your background in theatre, there's radio, there's TV, there's obviously a creative spark with film and developing, and then there's Commune, right? So we're talking mass media, on-ground mass media, and then something as specialized as Commune. So did that come from something that you were deeply interested in from the beginning? No. Or did you see something emerge and be like, hey, that seems damn cool?
Yeah, no, what happened was that actually I keep trying to explain to people saying that, sometimes out of failure are born great successes. I genuinely, when I came out of the film, I was like, what happened? Because, I spent 2.5 years. I gave it my sweat, blood, everything. And then I came out realizing, saying, the narrative was too dated because the play on which I had based the film, which I had written, the play was done in 97 with Neha Dhupia, etc. as students, and they were real students at that time. Now I'm making it in 2010, and I've sort of said, it's the same world. It's not the same world. The world had changed, and I was so happy living in that old world. So I came out feeling creatively a vacuum. My friends, Gaurav Kapoor, Ankur Tiwari, Vikram Sathe, a whole bunch of them, and my wife Shaheen, they sort of felt that, and nobody had ever seen me low. I'm always on a high, right? I'm buzzing.
Right.
Ye bhi kar lo, whatever, etc. So Sunday I was just quiet, and everybody felt that maybe I'm going through a creative block.
Sure.
Or, God forbid, a depression. So these friends of mine would come and they would say, chal kuch karte hain. And they would take me to watch things. And I would normally be producing so many things, I wasn't consuming enough. I started listening to independent music. I started going and seeing theatre. I started enjoying some offbeat things. And in the midst of this, I just felt that creators need a place to recharge. So Commune first was born as a commune in the West. So in the West, there are lots of art communes where people come and spend months and meet each other, and they cook and they clean and they eat and they leave their art behind. So, you'll know of very, very famous authors and writers and painters and musicians who would have gone to a commune, made their best work and left it there as a tribute.
Right.
And then come back. So Commune first started as that, saying, can I get creators together? And just like we're having shooting the breeze, chatting about stuff, there would be 10 people in a room.
Right.
And because I had still some money left from the earn out of my first company, and I really sometimes don't, money for me really is it's incidental. I don't care. So my thing was, what can I do with this which will spark a new thing? So I said, okay, if creators came with some ideas, and like if I had met Ritam at that time and said, "Ke, IFP," I would have immediately turned and said, "Chalo, ye karte." Like that thing, okay. Is there an idea in which one can invest? So I asked a bunch of friends. Gaurav came up with an idea which actually today I would say is BWC. He said, I want to interview people over breakfast.
Right.
So I said, yaar, ye, a community project nahi hai, ye solo project hai, bahut acha idea, you should do this. Ankur said, I want to do a big play, but his play idea was really, really big, and I said, we don't have the money for it.
Sure.
And on the back of this, I had heard a bit of spoken word, and I said, this is Sasta Sundar Tikau.
Right.
So let's try this. Why not try first-person storytelling? And the first time I did the first-person storytelling, it was, I came away feeling as if, somebody had dropped a mask between human beings. There was originality, there was vulnerability, there was genuineness. And I think when you've done so much commercial work, at some point, uski wo shine itni hoti na ki you're looking for something flawed and real.
Right.
And that's what I found with those stories. So I said, this is commune, and this is going to be the heart of commune. We will be the house of storytelling. And that's where we started the storytelling piece. And slowly over time, and people just gathered in a bungalow in Ahmed. There were 15 people the first time round. It was Gaurav's idea to shoot it. He said, देखो वरना ये चीजें आज होके खत्म हो जाएंगी, इसको शूट कर ले.
वीडियो नहीं बना तो देखा किसने?
ठीक है. And he said, देखो यार मैं लेजी आदमी हूँ, मुझे अगर मैं घर पे देखना चाहूँ तो
बिल्कुल.
तो अच्छा ठीक है, शूट कर लेते हैं. And I didn't know that they would have the power.
And this is 2013, 2014?
No, so this is 2014 November, December.
Sure.
And the next one which we did, we put up 1 or 2 videos and people started liking those. And Vijay Nair was a friend, and Vijay was at that time planning a festival called Stage 42.
Right.
He called me and he said,
now ill-fated Stage 42.
And honestly, it was a great idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he said, I want to experiment with many genres. Can you guys do storytelling? That's where we did our first real show. And so I always thank him for having given us that chance. That then suddenly it caught people's fancy, and well-known people wanted to come and tell stories, and the more they came, the more their followers came. Then we had to set up a Facebook page. कुछ बनाया नहीं था कभी, तो Facebook page बनाया, Insta पे handle बनाया, सब चीजें हम सबने करी होंगी, right? And then it became this thing of saying it's growing, it's growing, it's growing. And by 2017 we had reached a stage where we said, if we have 100,000 plus people on our social channels, even if 5% are interested in real life, and there are people who are real. And I have a huge thing with saying that digital consumption से ये ना हो कि लोग real life में चीजें करना भूल जाएं. And that's my, I think I'm a live medium person. I mean, digital comes to me second.
Sure.
But I am of the era where I got on stage and 5 people sitting in an auditorium excited me. 100 people clapping excited me. Thousands, we saw all that. Which is why I think I've been a live experiential person. So I bought all of that learning and I said, what if we did a festival? And what if we did a festival that is Hyde Park meets Edinburgh, meets, 3 things which are subculture, which is, and places where, our underline was where words belong.
Beautiful.
And that was it. So that's how it happened.
Beautiful. That's a great introduction to Roshan and his body of work. Let me bring in Ritam here. Ritam, आपकी कहानी थोड़ी तो अलग है, काफी अलग है. For those of my listeners who don't know enough about IFP, India Film Project is now in its 10th year. For those who have been at IFP, it's an experience of its own kind. While we do Mami and while we do other film festivals as well, IFP has its own sort of place of pride, especially within the filmmaker and independent film community, definitely, right? But I will let Ritam do the introduction. Ritam, how did IFP happen to you?
Oh, so IFP was, for me, it started as an overnight idea. So time-bound challenges are a very common thing. So time-bound challenges, word challenges, essay challenges have been happening around the world since a long time. And internet, of course, gave us a window into what exactly is happening. And time-bound filmmaking challenges are also things which are happening around the world. So what we started was, I was based in Ahmedabad because I did my post-graduation from there. So this was just post my post-graduation days. And I was looking at doing something in this field. Before IFP, I was venturing with an idea of doing a touring talkies in rural areas. So I hired a van, I hired a projector, a speaker, sound system. Took it to different villages and tried out playing different kind of content, checking if people are willing to pay, can advertisers go there. I was talking to HUL saying that can we take your brands to this space, and I was 20-year-old back then. So for me it was a very, very new thing out of just being out of your college and and experimenting and seeing what kind of content works, what doesn't work. So with India Film Project, it started as Ahmedabad Film Project. I had basic knowledge of coding. So on a very particular evening when we were thinking what next, because I had opted out of my placements from my MBA, which means I was done with the touring talkies idea, which did not work. The pilot was so costly that it was not going to happen. There's 2 investors who backed out saying that this is not going to work. 4G aayega, things will change. 3G aayega, and the things will change, etc. So I said,
this is around 2000.
This is 2010.
2010.
Yes. And on a particular night, I think without giving a thought about what we wanted to, we said, okay, for the next 3 months, I don't have anything in my hand to do. So let's do a 50-hour filmmaking challenge wherein we gather a couple of filmmakers. Before that, I had a brief stint at Mumbai, and I knew that a lot of creators were looking at a platform wherein they could actually create something.
Right.
They're long lost ideas that they've been planning, because a couple of my room partners back then, they had written a script. We did multiple narrations, but it never happened because no one had the time of getting it together and making it happen. So we thought if we could put them into a time-bound narrative, this might just work. So we made a small 2-page website on WordPress. We made a Facebook group called Ahmedabad Film Project, and we launched it. And we had a 20-day timeline wherein people had to register, 1,000 rupee ka fees. There was no online payment. And suddenly within those 20 days, we had close to 86 teams which registered from more than 19 cities in India, which suddenly gave us an idea of the kind of participation which we would have not expected, because we were expecting people from Ahmedabad, Vadodara to actually participate in something like this.
And this is 2010 when the internet wasn't as all pervasive as it is today.
Speeds weren't there.
Absolutely.
DSLRs were costly.
Right.
YouTube was penetrating India. And alternate careers were still a thing for people to dream about. So passion was a very new word. So people were still taking up engineering and were luring around placement packages. Yes. And when 600 people turned up inside an auditorium, and then they had to travel down to Ahmedabad to be a part of it. So this wasn't happening online.
Right.
And when I saw those 600 people inside an auditorium and more than 90 films which are made as a part of it. So they had 50 hours within Ahmedabad. They had to go out. They were given a theme on which they had to script, shoot, edit and upload a film. Submit a film in a DVD. The kind of, I just thought this was something which with more number of people choosing alternate career, a lot of people maybe taking up filmmaking in a much more serious manner might end up doing it. So it started with a very brief idea of filmmakers getting together once a year and finding it as a LinkedIn kind of platform to collaborate with new people working on an idea. Over a weekend, it starts at Friday after your office hours at 8 p.m, ends on Sunday 10 p.m, Monday you are back to your office.
Right.
So it started with that kind of one time only execution wala part. Never thought we'll be doing even a second season to it.
Right.
So
then how did you first fund it? The first edition?
Completely from my pocket money. We had a small sponsors from the local animation institutes who came up to it, and the budget was really less. So I don't think so at that time it was thing. But now looking back, I think getting that amount of money to do the first festival was much more difficult than what it is now to get
the 10th
festival done.
Absolutely. Thank you for that lovely introduction to IFP, and I'll come back to picking how we went from year 1 to year 10. I've spent a considerable time in my life trying to build events up as well, not at the scale of a spoken or an IFP, but I've been intimately involved with college fests. I was the first guy ever to do on-ground stuff for TVF around that time. There is a certain joy in seeing people get off their ass and come to a show. I think that's the most rewarding aspect of this, right? I mean, it's hard to relate to the fact that local shops say sponsorship leke aate the. This college fest called Arohi that I did when I was in Nagpur. So I'm engineering out of NIT Nagpur, and the fest is called Arohi. The logline is in Central India's largest cultural festival. और Central India's largest cultural festival के लिए आपको basically हल्दीराम की दुकान पे जाके वहाँ कैशियर से कहना पड़ता था सर 1000 रुपए दो, right? So that is where it starts, and often those small beginnings seem infinitely harder than what it is today. But let me ask you this, Ritam. Like you said, you never thought that you'd be doing a season 2. right? Then you saw 600 people, and you saw 86 entries. At what point was it like, नहीं एक और बार करेंगे और इससे बेहतर करेंगे?
So, from my side, because I was the single person army with couple of interns who was doing this, I don't think so I had an idea of doing it again. It's only a year later when suddenly office mein one day the phone rang and someone asked us saying that when is this year's Ahmedabad film project happening, which meant we never thought people were expecting a second edition.
So you'd created demand that you didn't know how to fulfill
Which
for a second.
yes.
Yeah.
So, and we never had, because we had taken a lot of other freelancing projects, so we never had a time of doing it for the second year. And then we thought, when we have entries pouring in on email and a couple of queries on telephone, let's do the second season now. At least give it a second try. Again, we'll pull out some kind of money to do it, but let's just put it across there and see if we are getting a little more participation than what we got. And the second year, eventually we got 1,500 people coming in.
Wow.
So that was very heartening to see that suddenly, with just a Facebook group with 1,000 plus members and a website which was a 2-page website, we used to crash much more times than we would expect. This was completely unexpected for us to have a second season happening, and the seriousness kicking in, saying that okay, so this can go on for multiple years as well.
Right. That proof from demand is very important. I think that's what you can take to an advertiser. That's what you can take to more audiences and stuff like that. Roshan sir, for you, when was that moment for Spoken? I remember seeing the ads for Spoken the first time around and being like, bro, this is it. I was there last time around, I was there this time as well. And the vibe is completely different, right? But the scale at which you do it, right? And I think this is what, edition 3 is what we've just closed on. I think you're trying to do a Bangalore edition in a couple of months' time.
One in March.
The scale of something like this, and see it grow within 3 years or so to what is called the Coachella, the Lollapalooza of spoken word.
Yes.
Was that the vision, or was that, you think, influenced by the kind of demand that the India market was looking at? Or did you always, to put it simply, was this what you always set out to do, or was it like, nahi yaar, ye karte hain kyunki ye hai nahi?
No. So in my head, I had very clearly felt that this is what I want to do. And
Sure.
and this year, when Rudy Francisco
Right.
actually said that line, saying that this is the Coachella for art, and there was this lady who had come in from Britain who was a poet herself, and they started having this little conversation online where she said, no, this is the Glasto for poets. Now, when I heard those two statements, I said, ab main mar sakta hu. Ye ho gaya, because I had actually imagined, because what happened is that when you live in bigger cities in India, there's a certain sense of claustrophobia that you get everywhere, including an auditorium.
Sure.
So even when I do, and I've done so many events and I've done stadium events and stuff, but there is even though you're sitting on artificial grass, आप grass पे तो बैठे हो ना.
Right.
तो पहली बात तो वो थी. So like I remember again when I was doing the first year and we had not got closed a sponsor, a big sponsor or whatever. Again, OML was helping me and advising me, and Ajay and Vijay both sat down and said, listen, nobody knows where you're going to do it. Auditorium में कर ले. Right, and it was very sound advice. It was investor advice. It was a friend telling you, don't do it. And I was like, so I actually went and I told my wife, I said, Suno, my birthday fund, there's a little birthday fund which we keep saying, because we like to do big birthdays or whatever.
Right.
I said, if I use a couple of my birthday funds together, will you mind? So I said, how much? I said, might be equal to a child's education. So she was like, okay. And Shine knows that once I'm doing something. But I never wanted to compromise on the scale. Like I was told by multiple people to do multiple, yahan kar lo, wahan kar lo. I said, nahi yaar, dekh liya hai na, and agar ek baar vision dekh liya, to dekh liya. And I said that the other day when he was there. So I said, see, I had compromised on creativity for client so many times. Rather, is pe nahi karunga. This is for me. And I mean, there's so many people who enter there and say, oh, so this is what you used to tell us about. I used to talk to the people about this 20 years ago.
Right.
Saying that, one day we will build, one day aisa karenge, whatever. So it was that mega idea that I had. And when the first year, I remember we set up everything. And see, being from events, I have one or two smart thoughts which I did. So in the first year, we weren't big enough to take all of Geo Garden.
Right.
So Asian Paints was one of our sponsors. I built a wall which had Asian Paints branding on it, and it was a collapsible wall. So you could move it in or move it out. तो ऐसे जितने लोग आएंगे उस हिसाब से अंदर लेते जाएंगे. You know, so it'll look houseful.
Right.
And these are things you learn, right? I mean, you learn this in theatre. और अगर नीचे का नहीं भरा हुआ है तो balcony के लोग नीचे ले आओ. ये तो सब सिखाया जाता है आपको. So I knew that. So I made in year one the environment that intimate, cozy, not खुले मैदान में आगे लोग नहीं है.
Right.
So people got that feeling that, oh my God, this place is full. And it's a perception you need to create. It's an experience you create or whatever. And then I had no understanding of digital marketing. I learned. So our whole team was sitting together. We have a separate festival team that worked on it. And I learned multiple things. Just saying that, you build and people will come or whatever, etc. We got hoardings from friends. We begged. We got ads on radio. Rishi Karan was a friend. I went to him and said, bhai, interview kar le. He said, kya baat kar rahe ho? And everybody just helped.
Right.
So that happened, and I remember we were sitting in the afternoon, 2 baje gates khulne the. I'm standing with GK and saying, "Badi, ho to gaya, pata nahi kya hoga." And that door opened, that gate of Geo Garden opened, and slow motion I had DDLJ moment, instead of one kajol, there were hundreds of kajols and kajolas. No, and slow motion running times, because we'd opened workshops, and to enter workshops, people were so desperate. And when I saw that, I said, okay, ho gaya, and Ankur, Gaurav, me will often sit together and say that, when you dream of something so big, it's scary, but man, that feeling is great. It's a very scary feeling. There are nights when you wake up at 4 saying, ab kya hoga? December, I'll be honest, December, I didn't have a single sponsor for this year's Spoken because it was such a bad year. The market was so bad. And I had so many clients saying, delay kar do, postpone kar do. Nahi karta. Ye to nahi karta. So I did Delhi. And in Delhi, we really had really small friends who were helping us out, but I was doing it for the first time. And DLF came on board, etc. But Bombay, December something happened, and again things happened, and again when people came, I was like, okay, this is it. So no, I mean, to answer the short answer to your question, because I never give short answers, is that I built it to make it big, and I'm delighted that it's big.
And that's why we do podcasts, because we don't like short answers. On that very interesting note, let me bring this up before we go into a break. Putting on an event on ground at scale isn't just about having a vision, right? It isn't just about putting talent together. It isn't just about trying to understand what the audience wants. There's a lot of infrastructure that goes into it. Roshan spoke about it very briefly when he said, "Mujhe digital marketing ke bare mein kuch pata nahi tha." Major component of an on-ground event is something called ticketing, right? There's also publicity. There's underwriting events. There's so much more that goes behind putting this all together. And what's interesting is, along with the demand for events like this, the infrastructure to support events has also come together. Stay tuned on Storytellers and Storysellers with Roshan and Ritam as we come back after the break to talk about how to really put together an event of this scale and size.
Hey everybody, an awesome week on IVM Podcast is coming up for you. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're everywhere. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram as IVM Podcast. We're also on LinkedIn, and I'm going to be putting a lot more stuff on that platform too. We'd also like to thank our sponsors this week, HDFC Life and Storytel, for their continued support. And remember, if you think you or your brand can benefit by working with us or, sponsoring shows for us, we'd really appreciate that. So just a last call to everybody. Please do fill out our listener survey if you want your voice to count on the future of IVM. It would be great to get your input right now. We're going to keep the listener survey up till the 7th of February 2020. Please do fill it in. We'd really, really do appreciate your help. It's a crossover episode of Cyrus Says this week as host of Storytellers and Storysellers, Vineet Kanobar joins Cyrus. Vineet talks about his growing up years, being a part of the early TVF team, and what the job of content head entails. On Simplified this week, the ultra-crepidarians talk about the biggest consumer electronics show, CES. On the Traveling Professor's Diary, Siddharth talks about the ins and outs of having kids who are influencers. On Ganatantra, Alok and Sari talk about why it's important to learn about state politics. On 9XM Soundcast, Eva is joined by singer Dhwani Bhanushali. She shares her experience on working with Guru Randhwa and Tanishq Bagchi. On IVM Likes, Abbas, Ritika, Radhika and Antriksh talk about their favorite Hindi comedy films from their childhood and now. On Paperback, Rachita and Satyajit talk to educator Fatima Agarkar about Indian education and strategies that can help improve it. On Football Shitball, Sivram, Karthik and Gaurav celebrate their Silver Jubilee episode. That's right, 25 episodes down and going strong. This week they talk about Cristiano Ronaldo having scored more goals in 2020 than all of Barcelona, and about Ashley Young debuting in Serie A. And with that, let's get you on with your show.
Ladies and gentlemen, back on Storytellers and Storysellers with Roshan Abbas and Ritam Bhatnagar talking about building up live events in India. Ritam, before the break, Roshan was telling us about how it was a challenge setting it up because there's so many other moving parts apart from having a fantastic vision for what you want to do. Tell us about the first time you ticketed IFP when it became a paid event.
So, I'll just give you a brief background about a couple of other things at IFP. So we do a 50-hour filmmaking challenge, and then we do a script writing, storytelling, and a poster design challenge. Of course, we do storytelling with Commune. And 50-hour filmmaking challenge is where people get together from different cities. They make films. So this year we had 36,000 people who made 1,700 short films from more than 310 cities in India and 18 other countries. So for us, audience has never been an issue. So selling tickets, getting people to Mumbai, filling up the seats has never been an issue, and I think it's a boon that we have come from a place wherein getting audience is sorted. The other parts for us, which means how do we sell tickets, how do we organize the on-ground, because honestly I don't have any experience of the on-ground or the experiential part. We work with agencies which again do not bring a lot of experience because the experienced agencies are the ones we cannot afford them. So I think for us the challenge has always been on that side. So for us, since the day we made IFP more than a 50-hour filmmaking challenge, which means in 2016 we moved festival from Ahmedabad to Mumbai. Right. That is when we introduced ticketing because we had more number of people flying down from different cities and lesser capacities with us, considering the kind of auditoriums we could afford. Right. So for example, this year, the 9th edition itself, we had a seating capacity of around 4,000 people at a particular moment when we had taken up the entire Mehboob studio. Wow. And we overestimated ourselves and we ended up selling 16,000 tickets.
Are you serious?
And then that became a nightmare for us because there were more people standing outside in the sun than the people who were sitting inside. And then there was chaos, and then there was, of course, a lot of stinkers and mails and all Insta DMs which were being sent continuously. But of course, a happy problem to have. Yeah. So the moment we started ticketing, we have tried to keep ourselves as a festival that is open for any kind of creator. Since it's a creators festival, we don't want to have a very aggressive ticket pricing. We don't want to even have a very premium ticket pricing because this year again we had a internal team which came to us and said, why don't we increase the ticket price so that a lesser number of people turn up. Sure. But the idea is exactly opposite. We want more people to be there. We want more people to get something out of the festival rather than limiting them, saying that okay, let's not have people inside because we have limited chairs. I don't think so. That's the way we would want to solve the problem. So I think for us, ticketing is still number one issue if you ask us for on ground. Each year we have been messing it up since last 4 years. Sometimes we undersell, sometimes we oversell, sometimes we overprice, sometimes we underprice. But more or less now we have an idea about what the audiences are expecting from us.
Sure. Now, it's a very sensitive sort of thing, especially when it comes to an event, right? If I may ask, what sort of ratios do you make from ticketing versus sponsorship? Just a broad.
So for us, I think sponsorship would be 70%, ticketing would be 30%.
Which is kind of standard with what goes on in India in general, right?
Yes. So for us, one of the other things is that with the challenges that we have, all the 4 challenges that we do, we also have a registration fees there,
right?
Which are much larger than the festival attendance fee.
Those who are participating into the film.
Yes, and
the workshops and all that.
No, this is a 50-hour filmmaking challenge and those challenges. Right, so that fees is much higher than the ticketing fee. So people need to pay once to participate, second to enter the festival. Right. And then of course they're travelling and lodging costs when they're travelling from different cities. So considering that there are so many costs which are anyways coming for someone, we have been trying to minimize those effects that come on audiences on a repeated basis, because in a 15-day period you're asking first a person to pay for a challenge, then you're asking them to book their flight or train tickets, then you're asking them to book their stay, then you're again charging them money to enter the festival, and then again they have to pay for water, they have to pay for food, they have to pay for using other local transport. So that becomes a lot of that becomes a lot of cost, especially when you are telling that you are a creators festival and you are also targeting people in from 20 to 35, which means not everyone is going to be well to do. Right. If I was a 25-year-old person and I had to take a decision of spending so much money in going through this process, I would have actually thought 4 times before.
Sure.
Because this involves a lot of saving. It's almost a cost of a single mobile phone for me. So
wow, yeah. When you put it like that.
Because when they're making a short film, it also comes at a cost. So a single short film also costs them somewhere between 20 to 30,000, where there is no cash prize which is involved.
Right.
So that becomes a little bit challenging for us to make sure that they are happy. And when they lose, when they do not win the 50-hour challenge, they should not think backward, saying that after investing so much, why did we end up not making any kind of money or not getting any kind of tangible benefit out of it.
Wow, that's a very, very fine balance that you're trying to strike, right? With the whole investment from the participant, then as a viewer, then giving them a payout, which is not just the festival experience, but also the kind of, mitigate the disappointment that comes with, losing something that you put your heart and soul into it. Has it become easier? I know you said it's a challenge that that's been with you for the past few years, but today you have a Book My Show, Paytm Insider, Paytm itself, so many other players as well, right? With a sort of mobile first economy, there's so much proliferation going on, so much marketing also that helps support an event like IFP. Has it become easier?
Definitely. I think from a perspective of someone who's, say, flying from Lucknow to attend IFP, for them this becomes a lot more easier. They have a peace of mind that they are traveling to an unknown city or maybe first time to a city, and a lot of things for them are sorted because they've already paid and booked their seats in advance, which also gives us an assurance saying that what is the kind of audience that we should be expecting.
Right.
What is happening because of digital, every festival is these days experiencing is that a higher percentage of people book the tickets on the last 2 or 3 days,
right,
which again leads to certain kind of miscalculations. Exactly what we experienced this year was we had almost 80% tickets sold 3 days before the festival, and then in the last 3 days we suddenly had the next almost 300% tickets which got sold.
Wow.
Which is something that operationally, by the time we could go to platforms and tell them saying that okay, stop booking, and this time we introduced our own platform for ticketing. So by the time we could actually put checks to things, we already had sold much more than what we could have. Not much more, I would say a decent number more than what we
overshot your target for that matter.
Yes,
right. And like you said,
happy problem
it's a happy
to
problem to have. Absolutely. Roshan, if I flip this over to you, you're looking at a very different audience, right? It's not student filmmakers. You're not looking at young people coming in and getting a filmmaking experience or filmmaking masterclass. It's a very clear performance, and you need to have a certain kind of bent of mind, you need to have a certain psychographic, certain openness, certain disposable income to be part of Spoken. If I'm not mistaken, season tickets at Spoken this year were 2,600 rupees or something.
No. So the last day the season ticket was approximately 17.99.
17.99, sure. So which is a market difference from
yes,
from 6.99, right? What goes into planning for delivering the value of nearly 2,000 rupee experience, right? For example, when it's an NS7 weekender, this time around when they went to Shillong and they had some terrible lineup, according to the audiences in Shillong, they're like, hey, we don't like this audience, we don't like these bands, why have you got these for us, etc. That does stem from the fact that it's a steep price to pay. The price gate entry is expensive, right? What goes into that calculation when you're doing it for Spoken?
So see, Spoken roughly, our target this year was about saying that we would have got about 13 to 15,000 people. Right. We ended up with about 12,500 people, which I thought was a very fair number. When we start with that target, we are saying we're going to get about 6,000 plus people per day. You remove about 1,000 tickets that go to all your sponsors, etc., because we have a large number of sponsors, and and some of them run contests. Like Cred was there; they would run something, etc. So we kept about 1,000 tickets aside, which then means you've got to sell about 5,500 tickets a day is what you need to sell to get to the number that you wanted. Right. Now we start with an early bird ticket at 499.
Right.
We do that because we do not announce any lineup, and if you're a super fan of Spoken, with your eyes shut, you say, "I'm there."
Right.
So last year we'd only done 200 early bird tickets. This time we had to do 500. So you automatically estimate demand. After that we went to 999. Right. We stuck with 999 as a season ticket. So till December, because we started marketing Bombay. Actually, we only started marketing in December because before that we were doing Delhi. But in that month, what you sell, and this is something which Shreyas from Insider taught me, and I'm a good learner that way, I keep making these notes. He said, whatever you sell till the week before the festival is what you will sell in the last week.
Right.
I think that metric has now shifted, exactly what Ritam said, that in the last 3 days before the festival is when you will sell exactly the double of what you sold before, or maybe even triple in his case, which is really, really unique. It's really unique and a very good problem to have. In our case also, we remember that we've capped capacity. So then what we start doing is that as we hit every 1,000, we keep increasing our ticket price about 200 odd or whatever, because we know that we've exhausted that. So the super fan gives way to the fan, to the super like, to the casual. And therefore, अगर आप last 2 दिन में spoken के लिए decide कर रहे हो, तो फिर दो book तो 1,800 रुपए दो. You know, that's one thing. Also, see, when the person is coming, you must understand that there's food and there's drinks, and we've got a festival with a lot of alcohol and drinks and whatever, and F&B sale is a lot. And therefore, people will spend another 1,500 rupees per person. So at a slide at Brew, if you remember, they were saying that the average user spend in places like Supersonic and Sunburn and other things was about 4,000 rupees a person. So there is an audience which has that income. You can't only cater to them, because then you become niche and maybe snobby at some level, and I don't want to be that, because I think spoken word has a ownership right now that cuts across everyone.
Absolutely.
So the smarty pants is still looking for a deal, and we keep offering those deals. Those deals come as offers through sponsors, those deals come through contests, those deals come from saying, have you reached out to 100 people? So I genuinely believe there is a science to ticketing. We have over the last 3 editions started understanding it a little better, and now ideally, frankly, a festival of the size and scale we do actually still needs a little more. We still need about another 25 lakhs to come in overall. We do a lot of things that happen through the year, so we're safe.
Right.
But otherwise, what happens is that, I go to Jio and I keep having a running battle with the Jio people saying, I love your venue, but it's so expensive, I'd have to give 1 kidney for it, But because you got to do 2 days of the event, 2 days of setup, 1 day of dismantle, and they've also got a revenue to earn. But I somehow feel that some amount of subsidy needs to be done for some events so that we can because it's a tragedy that I could take 2,000 more people, but possibly they couldn't afford the ticket.
Right.
Maybe, or maybe I didn't reach out to them enough. I'm always told by Shreyas saying that, okay, a subculture. He said, when I told him the numbers, he's like, "Kuch kyun nahi ho?" I said, "Nahi, mujhe to pura bhara chahiye." What a houseful side, right?
Of course.
So he's like, you'll get there. You'll understand that you'll maybe have to say, what if next year you got Gulzar Saab? And I'm like, okay, that sounds good. But see, Ritam's smart because he manages to get people for free also. Sometimes because you know what happens? I'm only saying it because you know what happens? It's for the love of cinema and honestly, for the kind of people he gets. So people come. Now, hamara kya hota hai, when there are 8 sponsor names on top or whatever, as it is, a person says, Acha, and I know most of these people, but I kis muh se jaun?
So ethics also.
And it's the ethics, and we pay everybody. We try, pay some people very little money, but I keep telling people saying that this need for consumer to pay and artist to be paid is critical to me, because I have long lived with very dear friends who are suffering artists saying, "Yaar, paise nahi deta koi, kyun nahi deta? Dega." तो मैं तो झगड़ जाता हूँ करना है. But it's that. So therefore I'm saying the ticketing is that. I had actually almost at one point in December said, let's do a crowdfund. So देखते क्या होगा, पता नहीं. And again, at some points in time, because I genuinely feel that the experience of what one creates as spoken, there is a halo around it that really, I just think it lasts us a year. It's beautiful that way. So I believe it's an investment into ourselves. So a lot of what we do through the year is also because of what spoken did for us, and therefore what we do for spoken. So I think ticketing is genuinely something which nobody has their head around still. Globally, the ratio is reverse.
Right.
It's 70-30. It's 70 ticketing and 30% sponsorship. But yahan nahi hai. And I think this, my big worry again about the amount of digital things given to us free to consume. मैं तो रोता ही रहता हूँ उसके बारे में कि यार मत दो, ₹1 charge कर लो. But see, that inertia, okay, I will get to see that same performer 2 weeks later on my phone. So क्या हो गया? And that's the danger between real experiences and virtual experiences, which we need to keep promoting the real towards.
Absolutely. I love it. I completely agree with what you said.
So I just want to add something.
Sure, please.
So one of the things common between Spoken and IFP is that both of us have got a wonderful community,
Absolutely.
which is a little
I was just gonna
niche
come to
community.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that comes to our advantage, considering that is not what every lucky festival gets.
Sure.
You know, we have been on a very luckier side that we have had communities which have been, I'll say, usually festivals don't have these kind of fans. The kind of fans that especially Spoken has been creating. People are proud to wear a badge on their apparels, on their bags, branding a festival, which is not something. This is what Ultra has been doing. This is what very few of them have been able to do.
I think you hit it on the head, and I'm gonna twist this into one thing which I wanted to say earlier. Is that I think it's very, very important that that Indians get the hang of paying artists, right? In our country where TV has had ridiculous kind of control on how much a consumer spends per channel, even when it comes to digital, we don't mind ads because ads are why we get content for free, right? I think India is probably the only country in the world where even premium subscriptions are not actually ad free, right? Which is ridiculous, right? Hotstar Premium is not an ad free. So, but that said, this drive towards getting people to pay, especially those who can afford it, especially those who feel passionately about it, is very important. But it needs to be balanced with what exactly Ritam just said.
Absolutely.
A feeling of community. And I'll give you my example. I'm not slagging off Weekender, but I was at Weekender 1, 2, 3, right? And then I didn't go to Weekender for 5 years, right? Because I didn't feel like this was me. It was not speaking my voice. I still have that I was there mug, that aluminum mug, which is branding, and I feel very proud of the fact that Weekender exists. But that feeling of this being for me is not there anymore, right? It's still a fantastic event for anybody who was at Weekender this year. Last year, production values are through the roof, right? I mean, to have a Ferris wheel in the middle of it, to not have a single untoward incident within there where you got 9,000, 10,000, 12,000, depending on which estimate you believe. But that feeling of community gets missed out on, right? And like Ritam said again, that's what it's at the heart of what both IFP and Commune and Spoken are able to create and deliver. How important is it to you then that community stays on, number one? And second, how is this community helping you continue build this cultural space, right? Having an IP, having an event is one thing, but that's 3 days a year. How are you engaging this community in the long term? How are they benefiting from being part of this community? Roshan?
So last year after we finished Spoken and we had this wonderful, what happened was I remember the last moment of Spoken was that on day 2 we were finishing the festival and spontaneously the volunteers started saying Spoken and started chanting. And then people behind them started chanting and I suddenly saw this, geo filled with it. And I said, this moment, how does this moment become a daily moment?
Right.
So I went back to the team and I said, guys, what should we do? How can there be a Spoken moment in someone's life every day? And our team brainstormed and the first thing we did was we set up city chapters. So now we have 10 city chapters where every fortnight there is a show that happens and the person speaking there knows that they have the opportunity to perform at Spoken, right? So you started building a loop. The second thing is that we constantly keep doing workshops and trainings to tell people saying, no, you can't just become a performer. Performer बनने के लिए जो कहते हैं ना वो जौहरी को उसमें घिसाई कितनी करनी पड़ती है, रौंदा लगाना पड़ता है, इसको कहते हैं कारपेंटर वाला, तो वो बहुत जरूरी होता है. एंड अगेन दिस क्विक सक्सेस इज अ डेंजर ऑफ डिजिटल. मैंने कोई ऐसा फनी सा डांस कर दिया, बेचारे अंकल ने एक डांस किया था वो गोविंदा जैसा और वो पहुंच गए सलमान खान के पास, उसके बाद उनका क्या हुआ? गायब. So this
passed away by the way.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay. But that's what I'm saying, that for a little period of time he was suddenly oh my god. And this is this quick success and then anonymity people don't know how to deal with. So again, I keep trying to build artists into saying, learn your art, learn your craft. And people sometimes think I'm too much of a teacher, but my parents are teachers, so I love it. I don't care.
Hey, likewise.
No, exactly. So I'm saying that it just gives you that.
Yeah.
So first we created this. The second is that we have a team where I told them, and I remember the girl we hired for social last year. She came in and when she sat there, I said, what do you think about social media? So it sounds like an uncle. I said, that's me. You know, I said, okay, I'll tell you what, you know our audience, talk to them. So this constantly talking to your audience, you know, I keep trying to tell all my friends who build festivals, saying, Spoken Fest doesn't die on the day of the festival end. We keep every 15 days sending you a video, putting up nostalgia pictures, asking people to tag someone who was there. We don't do it on a daily basis like we do on Commune, because Commune is the active community. Spoken is a, मैं थोड़ी दूर चला गया हूँ लेकिन मेरी आवाज तुम्हारे कानों में है और फिर जोर से आने वाली है. पर वो whisper, वो कान में आवाज आती रहनी चाहिए through the year. So I think building those kind of loops is very important. There's a lot of feedback. I mean, the 100 volunteers who work on the festival, like I keep saying, they're our first line of defense.
Right.
They're our first ambassadors. So the first thing which we do is we ask them saying, guys, number one, safety is a huge thing, right? So we keep saying safe space, safe space, safe space. And we believe in that, saying that no, that needs to happen. They give us feedback on everyone, the team, the performers. Then we have 200 super fans who then write to us saying, did you like it? Did you not like it? Who should there be next year? We keep doing dipsticks through the year. So I think it's about engaging with your audience. And again, I think the beauty of IFP is the same thing, that, you know, ये challenges है. I saw that इनका show up जा रहा है, right? MTV पे there was this. Now, that film that somebody made is going to be on MTV. I mean, come on. It's fabulous that,
Right.
you know, that guy and he didn't promise them that, but they're getting it. What a gorgeous, gorgeous fulfillment. And again, I just think it's a great property where, again, and he'll tell you more, but I think also they engage really well with their audience.
So for us, the 50R did a lot of magic in building the community, because as such, in a single team, there are 20 people who are going to put at least 100 hours, 50 hours in making a film, another 50 hours in pre-production, and of course, traveling down to the festival. So it's almost 1,000 man hours per team, multiplied by 1,700 teams who are putting that amount of time into a festival and its vision. So the loyalty part, or the community, the feeling of being a part of a bigger belonging, comes directly from the 50 hours. So for those people who participate, for them, feeling to be a part of something is already there, and that's why we have almost 40% repeat ratio each year of people who participate, and a lot of people who participate suddenly after a gap of 3, 4, 5 years. Plus, so of course that helps us define. One of the other things is that we thought, we again went back to a drawing board and said, how can we make people much more come back to us, which meant that, one, we give them more exposure, which is what we are doing through MTV. This time we are releasing all the winning films in PVR this time across 10 cities.
Wow. Really?
So
That's fantastic.
Yes, so it's a proper theatrical release that we are doing this time. But more than that, can we get them live projects to work with? So of course we had access to brands. Brands were always looking for digital content. We had filmmakers from whom we had identified people who had certain characteristics. There was some teams who were really good with fiction, some teams who were very good with travel videos. So we had identified, and then we got brands and IFP community में से filmmakers, especially the winning filmmakers, together and started giving them projects.
Right.
So right from Godrej to a lot of brands currently are working on something.
That's kind of realizing your LinkedIn of filmmaking.
Yes, so we started giving live projects on a particular market value to people who were winning at IFP, or not just winning, but were making good films at IFP. So that started happening. So suddenly people wanted to be there, because now there was also an opportunity to not only get noticed, but also get maybe a good project. So someone now who's sitting in Guwahati has a small production house of 5 people and making wedding videos, and you tell them, okay, this is a brand called Synthol, and now you have to make a advertisement. It's going to go live and you will be there in the credits for them. Is a big thing for someone who's sitting there. Absolutely. So that helped us push a lot of things. I think one of the challenges that I would want to bring upon while making a community was, till 2015-16 we were more about filmmaking.
Right.
And then suddenly from 2017 we said, okay, filmmaking is not the only thing we should be talking about. We want to be a creators community, people who create in any form. So let them be photographers, writers, storytellers, poets, but let all of them come to us. And that is where we had, I think, our first major jerk, when we suddenly went to filmmakers and said, you know what, you are our valued possession, but now we are also opening it for everyone. So the exclusivity of being in a Phoenix club suddenly goes away.
Right.
That's where a lot of people came to us and said, you are India Film Project. I am the person who has to get the front seat. I am the person who has to get the special access. Why someone who's a writer get the same amount of access that at a film place where a filmmaker should actually have the benefit? And we had almost 6 months dealing with such emails and messages and calls wherein people used to tell us saying that, why don't you change the name from film project to something else, because you are not only about film anymore.
Right.
And then it took us 2 years to rebrand ourselves from a film festival to a creators festival. Right. So we said, okay, we don't want to associate ourselves as a film festival, we are a creators festival.
And now the billing is Asia's largest festival of creators festival.
Right. So it's only for creators, filmmakers, equally for filmmakers, equally for writers, for photographers. It's open for any kind of creator, and that's how we discuss our that's how we actually make our programming work. So
but don't you? But, I mean, I'm only saying this because I actually had the same thought when IFP happened and I saw everyone, and then the justification in my head was saying that I went to film school. In the first year, I studied photography, I studied sound, I studied writing, I studied graphic design. So actually, all the disciplines do feed into filmmaking.
They have to come together.
Yes.
But I think that's the only thing that I was, I'm sorry I'm saying this to you here, because my whole point was saying कि यार मत defend, इसमें कोई problem नहीं है.
Correct. I think where it really comes from, and this is again my understanding of having faced similar problems with fans, with consumers. Often when you change something specifically, they feel a lot of ownership. I think that's where it really comes from.
So for us, it was completely unpredicted when people came to us.
Right.
So we had a session on creative block, which again is not only limited to a filmmaker. Creative block is a creative block. And people were writing to us on Facebook comments saying that, I am a photographer, I also have a creative block. Why shouldn't I be a part of this? Versus the filmmaker was defending, saying that, I am the one who put my heart and soul in making a film in 50 hours. I am a filmmaker. This is something you did for filmmakers. I should be the person who should have the ownership. And I think to an extent, when people are putting in efforts, when they're traveling down for Spoken, when they're traveling down for IFP, they think that they should be equally valued. When he was saying that, Roshan was talking about they feeling what you were talking about, NH7, the kind of prized possession you have as a community, that only comes when you take care of all of them.
Absolutely. I mean, and the reason I said ownership is, मतलब मैं Spoken 2 बार गया हूँ, मुझे लगता है मेरा फेस्ट है.
बड़ी अच्छी बात.
मतलब again,
it's a good problem to have.
Absolutely right, and it is what keeps bringing people back, right?
Of course.
And also shout out to the fromagerie at
my God,
Spoken.
they're
So
lovely,
fromagerie is run by a very close friend of mine, and if you like grilled cheese sandwiches of any kind, my God, yeah. I mean, I go to festivals. 50% of my reason is fromagerie है तो मैं sandwich खाएगा. But that aside, I'll give you an example, Roshan. When Suryakant and PCRC started performing, right? For a second I was like, I love PCRC, right? I did PCRC's first interview in 2010, first album time. I've been a huge fan and I love to see them perform anywhere. But for a second even I was like, spoken word. And again, I loved the experience, and they put up a set, and your design, the production design for what was going on there was beautiful. But for a second, you do question it, right? Again, because I am a big fan, I'm like, okay, right? But there are these challenges. I think it definitely stems from the fact that you're a victim of your own success in a certain way.
No, you're right. And honestly, I'll tell you, see, this is what happened, that we held curation very close. And we had a team this time which was Tess Joseph, Dipti Rao, Sheena Khalid, Shantanu, Vipul, and of course our entire team weighs in. But what really happened was that so there's this constant battle between curation and ticket selling.
Exactly.
So people will turn and say, isse ticket बिकेंगे. ऐसे देखो यार मेरी concern ये नहीं है. My thing is the experience must be great. So what happened was that people said that what we're seeing is that people are consuming, people who enjoy spoken word are also consuming music like PCRC, because it somehow seems to blend, and PCRC seems to be an experiential act.
Absolutely.
Rather than just musicians. So like Local Train on day one is beautiful because of the lyrics and how they are and they were popping or whatever. So I think we opened it up. Like if you see this time we had comedy not in the comedy sense, but we put up more comedians on stage. Again to say that in due course, like again, see, we have these stages which we set up, which is called Virasat, Kalamkar, Mehfil, Modern Voices.
Right.
Now there was a big debate saying, should the stages this year actually be music, poetry, storytelling? Genre led, and in that genre we should then do we could then say classic and modern and whatever as it or whatever. So everyone keeps trying to feel कि इस पुतले को फिर से बना रहे हैं तो इसका कोई पार्ट इधर से लेते हैं कुछ यहाँ से लेते हैं. You will I know that there will be, God forbid, a year when somebody will turn and say, oh my God, the curation didn't live up to. We hope not, because we try to keep our year together. So I think there are three things when we curate the festival. there is something which I say that there has to be a never before, never again.
Right.
Right? So phase...
The I was there moment.
Yeah, I was there. The Faye piece this year, right?
Yeah.
Because it's built like that. It's Varun coming and doing the extra 2 paras to Kagaz Nahi Dikhayenge.
Right.
Which he won't, I mean, he may do it later maybe,
Sure.
but...
He debuted there.
And it was spontaneous. By the way, it wasn't, he was actually... So I said everybody expects him to do this, but he will do a story instead. So that's one form. Then there is the familiar. Oh my God, oh Aman is here and Yaya is here and so-and-so is here. These are the greats I'm always used to saying, doing the greatness. Right? And then there is the experiment.
Right.
Then there is the ye kya tha? Which might land, might not land, and therefore we keep everything, if you see, really tight. So, except for music, everything else is maximum 7 to 8 minutes.
Right.
So if it doesn't land, it doesn't land, but it's an experiment. So I think curation, again, it's a little bit of art, a little bit of wishful thinking, a little bit of science, which you all put together, and then you keep trying, to satisfy that audience.
But it's a big word, curation.
Absolutely.
And, in the world of the Facebooks and the Instagrams and the TikToks, anybody thinks they can be a curator, right?
Which is rubbish.
Which is absolutely.
I'm sorry. I'm
right.
very, very vapid about this. So.
टेस्ट भी एक चीज होती है. थर्मोमीटर लेके रूम का टेम्परेचर लेना भी एक चीज होती है. क्या चल रहा है, क्या नहीं चल रहा है, ट्रेंड कर रहा है, नहीं कर रहा है, उसके पॉलिटिक्स सही है, गलत है, सारी भी चीजें होती हैं. And I mean, because I work very closely with brands, and you were at Brew the last time we met, where the entire theme was author the culture, right?
Correct.
And curation becomes a very important part of whichever culture, as a brand or as a business or just as a bystander, if you're trying to curate for yourself also. What would you say to brands who come to you and say, hey, we're really into spoken word, can you help us do something? And the same question goes to you as well, Ritam, as you work with filmmakers. And again, filmmakers are not the easiest people to work with when it comes to brands, especially indie filmmakers. I'm not talking about the ad guys, because ad guys are used to it. It's a separate craft that they've developed. But as people who are sort of the nodes of the neural net that is your creative communities, how do you approach curating for a brand?
So, Ritam, I'll take this first. Whatever. Only reason I'm saying is because I've been down a very funny road. So year one, when we were going to do Spoken Fest, I had a brand I was working with who loved. I was to keep telling them about what I'm doing with Commune. They loved it and they were like, we have to be a part of this or whatever. So I left for my holiday in summer, saying I've got a title sponsor. And I came back. They said, actually we sat with our agency and we sat with our board, and they said, we are a fund. What are we doing at a Spoken Fest?
Wow.
And I didn't have a sponsor, and I didn't fight it. I said, you're right. I said, you're right, because in your life cycle, you can be a patron of the arts, but why spoken word? And I don't have the answer for this. And maybe if I got Gulzar, it would be perfect for you, because
sure.
I mean, they had an HNI kind of focus, etc. And it was absolutely fine. But what happens is that when brands try to ride a wave without exploring it, they number one make the Frankenstein problem starts. ठीक है, ब्रांड को ये चाहिए, हमको ये चाहिए, मेरे दिमाग में ये आया था और आप ये करना चाहते हैं, चारों को जोड़ के कुछ बना दो. It is going to be something that will not survive and which will be a nightmare. This is something brands don't understand, and brands, agencies spend too much time with clients and perhaps behind Excel sheets than with culture. And one of the big things that I'm trying to do this year is to create a culture immersion lab, saying, brands, agencies, come meet IFP, meet terribly tiny. I mean, in one day, bring 40-50 of us all together, because we have to also support each other. Again, I'm this huge thing of saying that, people very quickly here start building these fences around and say, ab ye mera, ab ye tumhara. Kyun? Right? While Ritam was talking, I was saying, what I'll do? I'm going to give him a challenge this year to say that, can his filmmakers make a spoken film? Film for spoken,
yeah,
great.
Brilliant collaboration.
Right? Why not? It's a perfect collaboration. Every year he gets us to help us with storytellers. Why not the reverse? So I think communities helping communities and brands building authentic communities. In this last year, I'm seeing a change in conversation. So frankly, I had about 8 or 10 brands who've turned to us and said, we don't know. Our agency doesn't know. We don't know. can you come and actually help?
I hear you. I've seen that change happen
and
as well.
That to me is the change that should happen, because if that happens, then brands will understand. Otherwise, and I said it that day again, and when Brew, while you were there, saying that if you want to author the culture, learn curation, go out, dive in, see different things. मैं एक दिन उर्दू पोइट्री सुनता हूँ, तो I discovered Danish Hussain there. I had heard of him, I hadn't seen him. Then I said, यार, तुमको लाना ही पड़ेगा. And then Zakir, I'm not a big consumer of comedy, and Zakir, in the first year when somebody said Zakir, and I heard him, and he's not just he's a poet as well.
Yeah, full on.
So how do you discover those things if you don't indulge in that?
Right.
So frankly, every brand, I believe, on the brand side as well as the agency side, should have a team that should be allowed to just do curation, जिनको culture का कीड़ा होना चाहिए.
Fantastic. I think that's our quote for this episode. Ritam, how's it been for you working with brands? I know we were talking about this a little while ago as well. There are always going to be those age-old challenges. इसमें मेरा logo बड़ा कर दो, इसमें थोड़ा और logo दिखा दो, थोड़ा stay कर दो, dialogue डाल दो. But moving past the minutiae of all of that, at a trend level, at a cultural level, do you agree with what Roshan is pointing out?
Yes. So for us, we have been a little more lucky because we have been in a video medium, which means video medium as such, you have thousands of films which are being made, and so much happening at the festival which gets recorded. So for brands, this is a much more richer medium of going out and talking to consumers. So for them, the challenge that he faced with spoken, because he was trying to do something which is for a brand still is in is a lesser rich medium, because there's only a one-way communication which was happening till now. Of course, now it's opening up. With videos, brands have been very comfortable since
they feel like
almost 2-3 decades. Yeah. And especially 2010 ke baad, the digital video thing, brand managers themselves take the call. They don't even want the agencies to be there in a thorough investigative way. They just are there. They are like, okay, this looks good. I think your films are great. This is only what matters for me. So I think that way we have been a little lucky. But again, the tricky part starts with the kind of expectations they have from videos that are being produced at IFP, or the kind of output that comes from videos, because videos, though they are rich medium, they are also a very easy to judge medium, because a brand assistant brand manager or a brand executive can see a video and say, oh, you know what, this is not what I like, and suddenly the entire discussion in that room is you are defending 6 people from a brand and a client's agency's team, telling why this video is actually a video that everyone liked, has got so much of love, but this is what brand should be putting out there. So I think we have that ways been in a little luckier space, especially, and that's why we still have a lot of our conversations still about videos and films, because that's where we feel we are in a little bit of a safe space dealing with brands. As per se with IFP, brands have never been an issue in making them understand what the concept is, or making them understand what the output is going to look like. Plus, we have, of course, case studies of so many years that come handy to us at any point. And now we have worked with almost 9-10 sectors. So for those sectors, we have a lot of things which are already set there. Right. So the moment we have an automobile brand which says, okay, what can we do? We have a lot of ideas and an idea bank which is ready, saying that, okay, so this is what you can do across with content, with audiences, with speakers. This is what can happen at the festival. So brand-wise, we have been a little sorted. Talking about curation, and especially the curation between brand and the festival, that is a tricky part for us, because one, we don't have a professional experience of an experiential setup. Yeah. So we come with our own challenges of understanding the on-ground part of it. So जितना हम digital में फोड़ लेते हैं उतना हम लोग we cannot do that in the. So वहाँ पे we have a little bit challenges coming up, because the kind of experience that say Spoken Fest gives, because they'll always, so for example at Camp Tinder, if Tinder comes to me and says, we want to do something, I will never have an idea about what can happen online. I can tell him, okay, let's do this. We have a community. Let's do something. We'll do a live matchmaking of a cinematographer and a filmmaker, a poet and a writer. We can do something. So, those kind of things, we don't get those kind of ideas as easily. So we have a very limited choice of things that we can offer to brand on ground, and that's where I think for us challenges suddenly appear out of nowhere.
No, I think you summed it up beautifully. And I think brands are very familiar with video. I mean, today assistant brand manager, person who has only ever run performance marketing campaigns somewhere, जिसको optimizing और bidding आता है, सिर्फ वीडियो आता भी नहीं है, देखा भी नहीं है, वो भी आपको बोल देगा कि नहीं ये अच्छा नहीं है. वो नहीं अच्छा नहीं बोलने में, that person will not even think about the number of man hours that have gone into making this, right? You will not consider that someone has thought about it, someone has written it down, someone has scripted it, etc., etc. Video is almost very easy to dismiss, but I think there is a lot of hope, and I kind of concur with what Roshan said earlier, that it is changing from a brand side, right? Several brands that last year would have been like, no, we don't believe in this, are today saying, no, we don't know enough about it to believe in it, which is a healthy change for us, right? But let me ask you this, right? And while these are spaces that you're developing, what are some other spaces that seem exciting to you from a live perspective, right? Spoken and IFP, which is not just film anymore, has grown into so many different things. If you were to start over again, right? And I'm not saying you shut down what you already have, in addition to what you're doing already. What would you look at in 2020 and be like, that's an interesting space, and I can build a great on-ground online culture IP around this? Again, I'm not asking for trade secrets, but what excites you?
I'll take it.
Yeah, please.
So I think there are multiple. I think gaming is really going to be big.
Yeah.
I've seen it live, and I can tell you that there are. So today I was talking to somebody who said that my relaxation before I go to sleep is watching somebody else play a game.
Yeah.
I'm like, really? आधे घंटे तक. Right now, imagine that. So this, I think, gaming is a huge place, though it does again promote an online culture. It's offline, coming into a stadium, watching somebody play. I mean, I'm actually going to spend a lot of time this year seeing that, for one. I think immersive experiences is a big thing. It's in the West. It's reached a very big tipping point. All festivals have immersive parts. But if you go to things like Sleep No More in New York, right? And these are highly curated, very expensive experiences, but they're absolutely brilliant in that level. I think some amount of integration of VR is there, and I know VR AR has been talked about for the longest time, but this year I experienced it because I shot Spoken in VR.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I shot many chunks,
right,
so that I could give at least somebody. So I'm trying to go, I will try to do a thing where I'll say pay some money and watch it in VR online.
Right.
देखते हैं क्या होता है, पता नहीं है. But I feel
you could talk to a device manufacturer.
Exactly. I'm saying somebody could sponsor it and do it. But I'm just saying that I feel, because when I experience 5 minutes of Spoken in VR, I was like, if I had this clip, I didn't have to go and do all these sales this year, because people who would not come say, so what does it look like? Now I can show them a still. But when you look at a VR and you actually turn to the left and there's a girl crying and somebody on the right is hugging someone, and in front of you the artist is singing and the music is coming binaural, it's fabulous. So I think these are a couple of things that will definitely happen. I also noticed that with what both Paytm Insider is doing and what is being done by Book My Show, infrastructure is going to improve, and therefore there's going to be a lot of concert venues. There are going to be at least 10 to 11 international concerts this year, 2020. So people bloody save their money and keep it for both IFP and us first. और फिर बचाओ देना स्टूडियो वगैरह को, पर वो सब होने वाला है. So that's happening. Children's experiences. I mean, Chota Bheem is becoming a play.
Right.
Winter Wonderland, the carnival was sold out. Peppa Pig, somebody put up a picture day before with kids going and hugging and said, "Yaar, ye dekho." You know. So I think a share of pocket towards experiences is really, really increasing. I do see the rise of another couple of subcultures. I think hip hop, etc., has happened. But I think people are trying to make it into much more than it is. That's my personal belief, because I feel that वो ठीक है, गली बॉय आ गई, लेकिन वो हर गली में नहीं गई. ये लोग नहीं समझते. It's very good, it's very beautiful, but it's still, I mean, it is still in Punjab. There is a different kind of sound of rap and hip hop, which is very different.
And Tamil Nadu.
And also I'm saying that वो अलग-अलग cultures हैं, उनको एक में जोड़ने की कोशिश मुझे थोड़ी सी अजीब लगती है. Dance has always been India's thing. I think every reality show में सबको लगता है कि या तो मैं आइडल बन जाऊंगा या डांसर बन जाऊंगा, स्ट्रीट डांसर 4 आ जाएगी. But it's I do think that in countries with so many people, stardom is so desperately wanted to be achieved.
So aspirational.
So aspirational. I mean, that that I think I think reality becoming live experiences, not the Hunger Games, but something else.
Right.
वो होगा.
But Hunger Games?
वो भी होगा. जहाँ देश जा रहा है वहाँ तो वही होगा.
हो ही रहा है आज.
हाँ, but I know exactly. But I mean, it's crazy. It's like Ritam will start one political films division.
Yeah.
Then he will start after election films division.
Yeah. Storytellers and story sellers will become a politics only podcast.
Yeah, I mean, पता नहीं क्या होगा, but होगा.
बिल्कुल होगा. I think you gave me an answer that was more than what I was expecting.
So just to add, so one trend that I've been seeing a lot in the West has also started picking up in India is wherein people build experiences which are residential camps.
Sure.
So people pick out a place somewhere in Jim Corbett, they'll go to Ladakh, they'll find semiotics, they'll go together and spend a couple of days which are something to do with unconferences.
Right. And festival effects or carnival of creativity, stuff like that. And that's a brilliant.
If you see 3 years back, Beach House Project, for example,
right,
3 years back, this was something which was unheard of, and paying 25-30K just for a 3-4-5 day stay is usually not something that you expect, and suddenly they have 500-2,000 entries coming in, which means that this is again going to be because the more we are going to be in the digital age, the more we are going to spend to meet new people, have good share of time.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think one of the experiences that's worth talking about while we were talking about the future is what Airbnb did with Antarctica. Their whole Only on Antarctica expedition was insane. They sent like 5 people to stay there with scientists for a month and explore Antarctica, and this is Antarctica, which is quite something, right? So it's good to see brands and people come together and do all of this. Roshan, one question that, as a follow-up to your thought, one of the experiential mediums that's been around for a very long time that you started with was theatre.
Right.
And while theatre has grown in terms of share of wallet, in terms of the sheer number of shows that get put up, and regional theatre is big as well, do you see technology playing a bigger role in how theatre grows in India?
So I mean, I did Aladdin last year as a performer,
right.
And when I was doing it, it was phenomenal to do it in Bombay because the NCPA could handle it. When it went to Delhi, I kept hearing stories of the ceiling leaking and a dog coming on stage and being a performer.
A dog coming on stage?
For 15 minutes.
Was it scripted?
No. So it was that or whatever, etc. Right? I mean, and of course the cast is very smart, so they managed. But they were not able to do the play beyond Delhi and Bombay because there are no auditoriums that can handle our flying carpet or store our stages. So I think the big problem is not the tech is almost getting there. Also, see what happens is in the UK and in the US, theatres are stripped and equipped for a play because they believe the play will run for 10 years minimum. Right? I mean, you've got plays that are running for 25 years.
Absolutely.
And making millions. But here, while so Mughal-e-Azam does, but I would wish that Mughal-e-Azam was a resident play at one location and stayed there for 200 shows. But they have to do it travelling across different cities, and Firoz Bhai has to change everything and make the sets go here and there. Yes, there is a propensity. So there a lot of films are being repurposed as theatre this year. You will see tons of films coming out as theatre, but how many of them will succeed? Let's see, because as you said I think when people use tech, we get totally taken in by tech so much कि सब कुछ LED कर दो, इतनी LED कर दो कि आदमी बेचारा LED बन जाता है. मुझे समझ में नहीं आता क्यों कर रहे हैं. You know, where's the touch and feel? Where is, like in Mughal-e-Azam, I keep telling people, I saw about 4 musicals and I said, except in Aladdin and Mughal-e-Azam, in all other musicals, the choreography was lines. While in Mughal-e-Azam, the choreography was a character. While in Aladdin, it was so acrobatic, it was a character. I mean, I had to really learn to dance and I can't. Wow. But it was like, okay, I'll do 2 steps. But that's an experience. But I think very often technology, we oversell ourselves on and really, I mean, we misutilize it rather than, and if you go to the West and you see how they're using it, in some of the plays that they're doing, etc., it's there, but it's not there. It's almost invisible.
Right.
It's like when James Cameron did Avatar, the 3D was beautiful.
Right.
After that, every other film, it is a sword pointing in your face.
Yeah.
Somebody throwing a coin at you.
Or water splashing in your eyes.
Shiva का इंसाफ ही चल रहा है. अरे यार क्या बकवास है? मतलब look at, so समझते नहीं है. वो हम overdo कर देते हैं. That's my problem with tech.
So, but just picking up from what he said, so infrastructure as such, I think is one of the biggest killers if IPs are not going to grow in India. The number one reason would be infrastructure. The kind of sitting in Mumbai to do a festival for me, I don't find enough venue options. I don't find a place wherein I can even put up. I am not talking about lakhs of people. I'm just talking about few thousand of people. I cannot even put them up properly. I think there are just 3-4 venues that you could count. Again, which is something that Mumbai has. You go to Delhi, the options get lesser. You go to Kolkata, Bangalore, there are hardly 1 or 2 options wherein you can actually do something.
Right.
So that is, for us, again, it has been challenging. And I think for a lot of newer formats that you're going to try, this is going to be challenging. Exactly what he told about theatre. You need a certain kind of space to do that. For that to thrive in your city, it's not going to happen. I belong to Ahmedabad, so I've seen in Ahmedabad, you don't have spaces for doing even a basic theatre. Right, so how do you expect suddenly the industry to flourish, and how do you expect...
What is that thing called that Mrs. Sarabhai owns?
Natrani,
correct.
Natrani, it's an open air theatre, and that used to host...
And it's very small, it's very intimate theatre.
And a lot of national shows still happen there.
Correct.
Though they don't have space for even lighting and proper sound.
I did lights at Natrani once. It's the smallest room of all time, and for the spot you literally have to go up and hold it like hot spot, hold it there. So I completely hear you. I think when you talked about infrastructure, this one example pops into my head is Control-Alt-Delete. There's this thing called Control-Alt-Delete, which is Bombay's longest crowd-funded show that runs, right?
Nikhil Udupai
and Himanshu Vaswani, 4x4 Entertainment, to run it. They've been doing it for, I think, the 12th edition that's happening on the 1st and 2nd of Feb. The show will not be out before that, but massive challenge there. They're doing it out there somewhere in Malad, and this is a crowd-funded show, right? So completely hear you on, as a consumer, as a fan, as someone who goes to live events. I think we're seeing a dearth of venues, of infrastructure support, of how the government as well is looking at these spaces.
Because the government has always looked on it as sin.
Exactly.
You must understand. देखो सत्संग के लिए बहुत जगह है, लेकिन कोई और चीज करने के लिए वो तो गलत है.
Speak में क्या कराओ तो मिल जाएगा.
नहीं, and you know, my problem is that why do you look down on everything that a youngster does or anybody does? I mean, if they're not rallying or not protesting or not doing yoga, it can still be something worthwhile.
Absolutely.
And I mean, the taxation, all of that is really worrisome. So, I mean, kudos to Book My Show, who is taking over places and saying we'll build venues.
Right.
Or Om Pradyut and the Embassy Group are building a huge venue together in Bangalore,
right,
which can take, I mean, I think they talked about 10,000. That's what you need. And I've actually been trying to rally a lot of IP owners to say, guys, if we got together and just used whatever is our money that we commonly spend, we spend on the same things. But what if we put together a fund, acquired those things, and it was free to 20 IP owners through the year?
Like a timeshare.
Exactly. Like, ये equipment है. Yeah. I'm not going to do the festival the same day as him because we're smart enough to know it's the same audience.
Right.
But if we just did that and shared it, so people have to find smarter. I mean, the startup kind of solution that people apply to this, we need to apply, and we'll have to find our own way.
That's words of wisdom from Roshan Abbas. Before I let you guys go, the last question that I ask my guests on this show is to recommend a piece of entertainment for my listeners. It could be anything, could be a book, could be a game, could be a show, a meme, a song. Roshan?
How many do you want? Because I live this life, so I do this on a daily basis. But, if there is a thing that I would love people, and I know that unfortunately you'll have to travel abroad to do it, but there is an activity called secret cinema.
Right.
And if you want to do it, and I hope one day, Ritam and his team brings this to IFP, because it's the most incredible thing I've attended. When you come in, they take your phone away and then they make you live a film. Live a film.
I think I've read about this.
Yeah, it's now in multiple cities. Right. I did it in London with Casino Royale.
Right.
And believe you me, I was in the middle of a James Bond film. I was in the casino. There was guns being shot. There were people dancing on stage. There was a guy who looked like the villain. And suddenly a girl went onto a ladder which took her to a helicopter. Right. And we all looked up. And there was about 2,000 of us looking at this. And suddenly around us, a collapsible stage happened and a screen happened. And then we watched the film.
Beautiful.
So it is, I mean, for me, it is the beautiful. I mean, it is IFP meets us. So I think अब कुछ करेंगे इसके बाद we will go into deep discussion.
Done. I mean, I'll take 2%.
Yeah, done. Absolutely. Finder's fee.
Ritam, your recommendation.
I think maybe a book. So I just completed reading Andre Agassi's Open.
Right.
And I could relate to it on a multiple level, right from a personal, the ups and downs of a person who has been there doing that.
Like an absolute iconoclast, right?
Yes. So I think open is something that I would have recommended. Regarding shows, people give recommendations. My interns give me 10 recommendations a day, so I don't think so I'm the best person to talk about it.
No, fantastic.
But Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is something.
What a show. What a show. Marvelous Mrs. Maisel has also been recommended other times. So we'll take Open from Andre Agassi as Ritam's recommendation. With that, we come to the end of this episode of Storytellers and Storysellers. Darius is looking at me and saying we've made good time. Thank you so much for listening. This is Vineet Kanabar saying goodbye.
Hi, I'm Satyajit.
Hi, I'm Racheta.
We are from the Open Library Project and we host a podcast called Paperback.
Paperback is a podcast where we engage with stalwarts and experts from various industries, suggesting non-fiction titles that contributed to their journey in a big way.
We've had guests like Anjali Raina, Dr. Marcus Rani, Dr. Swati Lodha, Ambi Parmeswaran, Apurva Damani, and many more on our show Paperback. Find new episodes every Wednesday on IVM Podcast app, website, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey guys, this is me, Eva Bhatt, your host for the podcast 9XM Soundcast. This podcast is produced by India's largest music network, 9X Media. We have been catering music and you have been enjoying. And now we bring you a podcast where music inspires. Every week, I interact with some of the best minds from the music industry to understand their creative discipline. Every new episode will feature artists who will share inspiring notes from their journey, some valuable tips for budding artists. So do subscribe to the podcast where music inspires. Enjoy a brand new episode of 9XM Soundcast every Tuesday on IVM Podcast app or website or wherever you get your podcast from.